friends, I'm here today to do part one of my January reading wrap-up. Other than the past weekend, I've actually been having a pretty good reading month, so let's get into it. I did start using Cassidy's spreadsheet, and I think my numbers will definitely be like better in the second half of the month when I do my final wrap-up, but I do want to give you guys some stats. So far, I was able to read 9 books, and I had 1 DNF. I'm trying to get better at DNFing books that I don't love. And then just these stats may be a little bit off because I updated my spreadsheet and then had to delete some stuff. But I read 4 new releases, 4 backlists, and 2 last year, which I like that Cassidy added that because I read a lot of books from the previous year, especially at the start of the year because I just ran out of time. Format breakdown, I read 2 physical, 5 audio, and 3 ebook. I mean, that's how I read them, but I do have physical copies of them, so if I show you, I will also mention that. And series breakdown, I started 4 series, I continued 4 series, and I caught up with 4 series, and then my standalone is 2 series. So I think that those numbers are a little bit off, but that's okay. And then I read no physical arcs. I read 3 on Audible, 0 on KU, 1 from my library, 3 on NetGalley, and 3 books I owned. And then genre breakdown, I read 1 YA contemporary, 2 fantasy, 1 middle grade, 1 YA fantasy, 1 nonfiction, 1 contemporary, 1 thriller and horror, 2 historical romance, and 1 mystery. And I think that that's it. Did I do my star rating? And I'm going to talk about my star ratings at the end of it because these are just stats. But I love stats, and this is just so easy just to add them in. So yeah, let's get into it. The first book that I started in 2022 and did not finish, but I finished on the first day of the year, was Rivals by Catherine McGee. This is book 3 in the American Royal series. I love this book. I gave it 5 stars. I was so happy that I picked this book up. It is the 3rd book in a series. I highly recommend you read them in order, but this book follows Beatrice. Beatrice is on the throne, and it just follows her as she's dealing with her first time as queen, and there is a lot of drama. You get 4 very different point of views. The end of this book was incredibly shocking. I did not see the ending coming, and I was like, oh my god, what is gonna happen next? This book was very politically motivated, and a lot of this book I kind of equated to when I was reading the 3 Dark Crown series. There's 4 main characters, so you follow Queen Beatrice, who is the Queen of America. And if you don't know about the series, which you at this point you probably do, but if you don't, the book series is as if George Washington had been crowned king and not president. What would have our world look like? And our first queen just became monarch. And you follow her younger sister, Princess Samantha, and then you follow Daphne, who wants to marry the son. She's a bit of a social climber, and then you follow Samantha's best friend, Nina. And it is a wild ride. Like, it is so political, very, very frothy. It's like Gossip Girl, but in the political world, and I loved it. I do not know when we're getting book 4, but I will tell you this, when book 4 comes out, I'm reading it immediately because book 3 left off on quite a cliffhanger, and I'm really intrigued to see how book 4 goes. It really satiated my appetite for the royalty vibes. I especially been watching all the Princess Harry stuff, so it really did satiate that, and it gave me like a really good look into that. I just really liked it. I gave it 5 stars, and I'm really excited for book 4 in this series. And then the next book that I picked up, I think was an audio. Yeah. The next book I picked up was an audio. It was one that I had on my TBR for quite a while, and I finally read Every Heart is a Doorway by Shauna McGuire. This is just a very unique series. I've heard of, they're also super short, so I read this on audio, but it basically follows what happens to the kids after they return from like a parallel or fantastical world, and this follows a school, and you meet a main character named Nancy, and she winds up getting sent to the school after she gets sent away from her magical land, and a murder is afoot at this campus, and she has to work with the other kids to solve it. I really liked meeting all the characters in the story, and I'm excited to see their subsequent books going forward. So I liked it. I don't think I loved it as much as everyone else did. I think that people say that the other books in the series do get a lot better. So I'm going to try to read book 2 soon, or listen to book 2 soon. I do have a physical copy of book 2 because my friend loaned it to me. But yeah, I gave it 3 stars. It was fun. It was a short read. I had to read a short story for one of my prompts. So yeah, I'm happy that I picked it up, and it was a 3-star read for me. And I think that it's just because it is so short, but I feel like if I read the whole series overall, I will consider it more of a whole book, and that might change my rating on them all. But yeah, I gave this one 4 stars for review. And then the next book that I picked up was another chunky book, and that is Stellalune by Shannon Messenger. This is the 9th book in the Keeper of the Lost City series, and I am pleased to report that I love this book. I gave it 5 stars, and I think this book was just very much, you were starting to solve some mysteries. You were starting to get some answers, and I just love this series. I think that this book series does what the Nevermore series is going to do. It just really expands the world. You have a lot of characters, so sometimes in some of the books, I don't feel like every character gets enough page time. But this book was done really, really well. You could see I tabbed it. A lot happened in this book. We did start getting some answers. 2 of our main characters were separated for most of the book. I can't talk too much. I did talk spoilers in my reading vlog, so if you want to know what happens, you can go watch that. But I loved it. I gave it 5 stars, and now I have to wait for book 10, which I think is the final book in the series, unless she like gives us one more. But yeah, this is right when the battle has begun. So I really liked it, gave it 5 stars. And really think that if you want something to read that's a middle grade series that is really unique and really different, I would definitely pick this up. If you're looking for something to sort of accent your Percy Jackson lifestyle, or your even if you're a former Harry Potter girl and you want something new and different, I'd recommend this series. I think it's really, really fun. And then the next book that I picked up was a nonfiction, and I'm trying to get better at reading nonfiction. So I picked up We Are Dreamers, The American Immigrant Stories by Simu Liu. I'll put the photo here. I don't talk a ton about nonfiction. I did enjoy this. This is also a Harper book, so I'm not really going to review it. I don't really ever review nonfiction because HarperCollins is currently on strike, but I did enjoy it. It was fun, but I don't want to really release my review into the atmosphere. But I did read it, and I gave it, I don't really rate nonfiction either, so there's really not a lot to say, but I did read it, and I enjoyed it, and I liked getting his point of view. So that was interesting. And then the next book that I picked up is another arc, and that is Spice Road. Here is the photo. I am on a blog tour for this, so my review will be coming shortly. But I did wind up liking this book. I think this book struggled a little bit with pacing. I think the first half of the book was really strong, and the second half of the book just had some pacing issues that I struggled with. But you basically follow this main character as she is trying to figure out what happened to her brother after her brother is believed to have turned traitor, and she goes on a quest to find him with her sister and a couple of other main characters. I think the first half of the book was super strong, and then the second half of the book had some pacing issues, but I liked it. I gave it 3 stars. I would probably check out book 2 whenever it comes out in future years. It just didn't wow me enough to like keep my attention, and I just struggled a little bit with the pacing and the plot. But it was a good read. I like the diversity. I like the spice elements. I like the spice magic. It just didn't push me forward as much as I wanted to in a read, and that is why I only gave it 3 stars. And then the next book we're going to chat about is an arc that I really liked, and this is Royal Blood by Amy Carter. I will attach a photo here. This book does not come out till March, so you'll have to wait a little bit for this one, but I really like this book. So basically you follow a main character who has always known she is the illegitimate daughter of the king, and this book follows her as she's sort of forced to go to England and sort of meet her family. There is a lot of drama in the story. There also is on-page sexual assault in the story, and there also is murder. But when she gets wrapped up in a murder, what is going to happen? The British public played a really big part in the story, and I think especially because I've been watching all the Harry and Meghan documentaries, it reads to me as super realistic, and I just really enjoyed it. I loved our main character. There is the possibility of some romance in the future again. sort of like when I was talking about Rivals. I was really in a royalty mindset. It really forced the characters to work together, and I love that when girls are forced to work together and not necessarily compete, but it was great. I also like that it had side elements that were like, you know, newspaper articles and like interviews and stuff like that, because I felt like it really fleshed out the world. There was also LGBTQ plus rep in that book for some of the side characters, and I just loved it. I gave it 5 stars. It really kept me reading, kept me pushing through. It was a great read. I gave it 5 stars, and now I want to go back and read Amy Carter's Backlist because I think that I would enjoy it as well. And then the next book that I picked up was an audiobook, and that was Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. I actually DNF'd this halfway through the year last year, but I finally picked it up again, and I am really happy that I did. I grabbed the audio, and I think that that's how I prefer to read historical romances, and this is no difference, but this is historical romance sort of with like a twist, and it's basically with, you follow a main character named Theodora Eddings, and she lost her soul to a fairy. So when she was forced to go to the marriage mart with her cousin, she has to sort of get her soul back. And it's really fun. It really gave me the Viscount Who Loves Me vibes, because she's very like standoffish and a little bit socially awkward, and she sort of has to work with her partner to sort of save the day. There's also like a sister dynamic, a sister element that I really, really like that also gave me the Viscount Who Loved Me vibes. I really like this one. I gave it 4 stars for review. I also read the short story Lord Sorcerer that sort of, it gives us more information about that character. I'll attach a photo here. The Lord Sorcerer was just like, I think it was like 30 pages, and it just sort of like expanded on his life story, and I liked it. I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't anything amazing, but I did like the world, and I want to get the other books on audio to read them. But yeah, this was another physical book that I did wind up reading. I just wound up listening to it. So that is a 2 for 1 because it was in the back of the book. It was also in the audio, but if it's on Goodreads, I tend to add it. I don't know if you guys do that. If it's short stories, I tend to add it, even though if I read it in a physical book, that's just how I do it. But yeah, Half a Soul was 4 stars and Lord Sorcerer was 3 stars. And then I wound up reading another e-arc. I'm trying to get better at reading those in a timely fashion. So the last book I'm going to try about in this wrap up before I talk about my DNF is Finley Donovan Jumps the Gun by El Casamato. Here is a photo. This was definitely a surprise for me because I struggled a little bit with book 2 in this series, but this one I just think the setting sort of changed it for me and I really liked it. But basically you follow a main character who is an author or a suspense romance novelist, and she winds up getting caught up in a lot of political drama intrigue, and she winds up having to go to work at a police camp to like solve some mysteries, and stuff goes from there. It's fun. I think I liked book 3 better than book 2. Not as much as book 1, but I just enjoyed it. I think the setting changed. There was a lot of new characters. It was fun. I think I gave it like 4 stars for review, and I think I gave the second one 2 stars. So it definitely was an increase. I like the character. I like the setting change. Again, sort of when you go into this series, you have to like suspend your disbelief a bit, but there is romance in this. It's just a side plot. And then the DNF I'm going to chat about. Sadly, I joined Peace Loves Books, like Patreon club, and she picks a book every month that she reads with like an author, which I thought was a cool concept. Definitely check her out if you want like to join that. And they wound up reading The Obsession with Catherine Cowles. I read about 250 pages of it and I put it down. I was just so bored. But here is a photo. Like the first half of the book, I was like intrigued by, like, she was basically, her dad was a serial killer and she wound up finding his last victim and she rescued her. But the minute we jumped to the future, I like lost all interest. We went to the small town and she was like building, like, she was like fixing up a house. And once we got to that point, I was like so not interested. I felt like if the suspense element had to come in a little bit early for Nora Roberts and it just came in too late. The only reason I kept reading, I'll be very honest, was there was a puppy involved and I was like, okay, I want to know what happened to the puppy. But once I got like 250 pages in, I stopped it, and then ironically I picked up Half a Soul. So that is my reading wrap up for the first half of January. Let me know in the comments what was your favorite books. I would say definitely my 2 favorite books right off the bat was definitely Physical with Stella Loon and Rivals, and also Royal Blood. I had a really, really good time reading those. But yeah, I will see you back here at the end of the month for my full wrap up where I talk about all my stats. But yeah, let me know in the comments what are some books you have read and loved recently, and I'll talk to you soon for my next video. Bye, Book Dragons.